What happened?
That's right, and I think what's more important about that experience was that in the meditation I had on top of the mountain, I went into the same state of spirit or consciousness that I had when I had the near-death experience almost exactly 6 months earlier. And at the end of it, I stood up, and it was crystal clear air at that altitude in October of 1973. And as I looked up at the sky and saw the Milky Way galaxy, a thought not my own, it came to me and said, "Behold what a beautiful universe God has made." And with that I went into a state of cosmic awareness even as I was awake and standing on the mountain. And I became aware of this glow off the top of the mountain, just out of the range of vision. But it was obviously right beneath the crest of the mountain. And then I sensed there was someone standing beside me, and I looked over, and here was a 3 to 4 foot high, maybe a little taller, extraterrestrial life form. But of course, I'm an 18-year-old guy. I just turned 18 in June of that year, and I didn't know what this thing was. And I kind of got on the ground. I remember getting almost like in the fetal position, thinking, what does this animal want with me? And this is an extraordinary experience. And I then stood up again, and it came over and touched me on my right shoulder so firm. I had a ski jacket on, but I saw the jacket indent, and as it touched my right shoulder, all the hair on my body just went on end, like sort of this electricity sort of effect.
Oh yeah, I've seen that in like magic houses and things. You touch
it was amazing, and it was a very attractive-looking extraterrestrial being. It had very human-looking eyes, but more almond-shaped. And with that, I went into this state of consciousness, and we floated, literally floated, like a levitation experience, right on board this craft. And next thing I know, we were out in space, but in a state where, if you imagine being in a vessel where the whole thing is fiber optics, where you just see the space around you. But I was there physically, but it was as if you were there without the need of any physical container. And as I was sitting with this being and several other extraterrestrial beings that were from different planetary systems, I learned that what they were interested in me for wasn't about me personally, but so much as the fact of what is it like for a young man in that time in history to be experiencing universal consciousness. And we literally sat in meditation together. That was the purpose. And it was on that night that we sort of co-created the CFETI, the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, what's called the CE5 Contact Protocol, where we take people out into the field where these UFOs have been seen, go into this state of consciousness, remote view the ET craft, zoom into Earth from space, showing the ETs where we're located, and vector them into a close encounter. And that experience was first sort of co-created during this incredible encounter on this mountain back in 1973. And as I relate this in the book, I remember when I was telling this story to the group of people gathered out here at the farm, people said, well, you know, what did you talk about? I said, this isn't talking about linear things. This is about experiencing that state of consciousness, which is the universal resonator, the universal connector amongst all peoples in the cosmos. And that's that quiet state of awareness within us that is eternal, that is infinite, that is unbounded. And I know that the reason they were interested in this experience with me was that they knew that I had experienced it a few months earlier in this near-death amazing experience that transformed my life, and figured that I would maybe understand how to take it to the next step in terms of a communication technique with these extraterrestrial life forms. And after a period of that, I found myself back on the top of this mountain, but about, I'd say a quarter of a mile down this gravel road that was blocked at the bottom of the mountain. And suddenly, I realized that I had this unusual field around me where I could go 20 or 30 feet in one step. So in other words, I was sort of had an anti-gravity energy field that was still around me. So I remember in this state of enormous joy, bounding down this mountain, which is called Rich's Mountain outside of the little town of Boone, North Carolina. And I was bounding down this mountain, and as I got down to the little town, this little college town, it was deserted, and I thought, my God, this is during the Yom Kippur War. I said, maybe we went to DEFCON whatever and had a nuclear exchange.
And everybody's gone, huh?
And everyone's gone. And I realized that actually what I thought had been, half an hour or so was actually 2 or 3 hours in this transcendent these extraterrestrial people on board this vehicle. And when I got to town, I realized it was actually 12